we'll see how many people are here. Cobalt's right here. Hey! I'm gonna turn around, so I think I can do that, yeah. Cobalt! Cobalt, say hi. Hi! Say hi. People love you. I'll just wait for a couple people to join. Meanwhile, you can stare at Cobalt. Are there birdies outside? Cobalt. Are there birdies outside? Hey, everybody. Cobalt. Just gonna wait a couple minutes. It's really bright in here. So today is just going to be random stuff. Felt like my spirit guides were telling me to do a live to just kind of talk about my story and my spirituality. Like how all that got started. Hey, Lizzie. Thanks for joining. And like why I got into art therapy. I'm going to start doing more lives doing like art therapy stuff so people can join along. I'm still working on that. So I will announce that soon. You missed Cobalt, Lizzie. He's actually playing with the sword. While we wait for people. Cobalt. Oh, wait. Shit. There we go. Cobalt. Hey. Cobalt. People love your face. Let them see your face. All right. Thank you. By the way, the amazing selenite sword from Organic Punk Rocks. This thing is so badass. I love it. I can't wait to use this in session with people for cutting cords. Alright, Cobalt's probably going to be ornery while I do this. Yeah, Cobalt's great. He's probably going to be bad during this. Okay, so if you guys have questions, please ask. I'm kind of nervous, going to be honest, because I feel like I'm going to be super vulnerable during this. Just kind of like talking about my story. But I do that all the time in session. Well, not all the time, but I do it in sessions with clients to kind of help them realize that I've been there too. So yeah, there's Cobalt. You get to see cat butt in the video. Great. That's good. I'm glad I seem comfortable. So I'm just going to wing it. My spirit guides kind of told me to do that. And I pulled a card right before going live, and it said instinct, so follow your instinct, which is funny. Okay, so... where to start is a good question. I feel like I was always spiritual, even from a kid. I always felt different, which I know a lot of people say they feel who are spiritual. I always liked art from when I was a kid too, so I just always did it just to kind of cope. I grew up with, so my mom and dad were divorced before I was born, and he was abusive towards her and stuff, so like when she was pregnant with me, and I believe in that whole prenatal trauma stuff. So I know, and I've been doing some work in my own therapy with that, which is pretty interesting, how much we actually absorb of that. So there was that. But my mom always lived with my grandmother, which was her mom, and her father, so I called him my papa. He was like my dad. And then we also lived with my uncle, which was my mom's sister. And The whole family is a bunch of addicts, as most families are that have abilities. Because I have an aunt who can see spirits. I have my whole family has abilities, but they all numb it out with either food or mainly alcohol in my family, things like that. But my mom was an alcoholic, so that was from like when I was pretty young, I remember. So I grew up with that, grew up with domestic violence. My grandmother was very physically and emotionally abusive towards my mom, towards me, towards everybody in the family. And my mom actually died from alcohol when I was 8, from alcoholism. She was pretty sick for a long time. So that was the first major death in my family. Prior to that, my great-grandma died the year before. I think that's when I saw my first spirit, but I kind of blocked it out. I just remember being really scared to be in her house because I didn't want to see her, even though she had died. It kind of freaked me out. So yeah, my grandma died in 91, or my great grandma died in 91. My mom died in 92. I didn't get any signs from her for a very long time because I numbed everything out with alcohol myself when I was younger. We'll get to that. But I know people in my family like had candles light and like would have visitations from her and my great grandma after they died. Yeah, I had some stuff to work through until I made contact with her. Thank you. So, let's see. So, after my mom died in 1992, I was 8. Then my dad came out of nowhere and tried to get custody of me. That was fun and traumatic. So, thankfully, he didn't get custody of me. Then we had a couple other deaths in my family. We had like at least 1 to 2 deaths in my close family from 1991 to 94. So I grew up with a lot of loss, and yeah, it sucked and it was crazy. And I used art basically to cope with everything. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it. My family was very don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, because that's what addicts do. So there was no counseling. There was none of that. I really wish they would have, but I had to kind of figure out how to cope myself, so I used art as a way to kind of express my feelings. I used music too. I used to sing. Hey, thanks for joining, Missy Heart Girl. I'm really bad at remembering names, so I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I have ADHD too. I wasn't diagnosed with that until I was 21, but I also know that's trauma as well. So let's see. So yeah, there were deaths throughout my childhood, and I used art to cope. I used singing too. I sang in high school. I was in show choir with the dorky outfits and everything. It was great. We went to New York City one year and performed. It was fun. So I used art and music. So, creative kid, creative weirdo, pink hair, So my grandmother was basically who raised me after my mom died. Because my grandfather died in 94, and that was really bad for me. And that was tough because he was like my father, and he was like the safe person. But my grandmother was super Catholic, and here I am, and I'm like, I don't believe in all this Catholic stuff and Catholic bullshit. No offense to anybody if anybody believes in that. Hey, Shannon. But yeah, I was kind of... I had to go to Catholic school growing up, kindergarten through high school, and I hated it. But I knew how to play the game so that I could, like, fly under the radar. Thanks. So, yeah, she tried to force all of that on me, and here I am, like, this free spirit. Like, I don't believe in that. I believe in the universe. And I was, like, going to hell because I didn't believe in Jesus and the Catholic Church. But yeah. So after my grandfather died of lung cancer, he smoked. Um, he died in 1994, and after he died, that was like the most prominent like signs I've gotten from spirit. After that, like there was so much stuff growing up, I can't even remember it all, but his was the most defining. So um, after he died, we had the funeral and everything, and then we had people back at our house to have food after the funeral. Um, so like a bunch of family members, his friends, things like that. And I was standing in the kitchen with my grandmother and her sister, so my great aunt, and we heard these two loud knocks on the door coming into the house. So like from the garage, as if somebody was out there knocking to come in, but it was on the storm door that was on the inside. So we had the storm door open and like the screen door was there, so you could like go outside. Hey, thanks for joining. And we were like, what the hell? Okay. And then a couple minutes later, the same two knocks happened on the front door in the house. And we were like, okay, there's nobody there. So then I went down the street to a friend's house just to kind of get away from everybody. And it was just me, my friend, and his mom sitting in their kitchen, like lights off, nobody else is home. Like his dad was at work, his brothers were somewhere, they weren't there. Hey! And the same two knocks came from their like door that went from the garage into the house. And like their door was locked and their garage door was down and nobody else was there. So my grandfather's spirit followed me from our house to my friend's house being like, hey, I know you're here. Like, so that was really awesome because my friend and his mom were looking at me like, what the fuck did you just bring to my house? But it was just my grandfather saying, hey, I'm doing okay and I'm here and I'm watching over you, which was so nice. Hey guys, thanks for joining. So yeah, after my grandfather died, that was like the most prominent thing that I remember, like of signs getting from spirit. And it was like after we had all the deaths in the family, like I always knew that we didn't really die, like spirits kind of live on, just because everybody in my family can sense that, and we've like experienced so much stuff. But that was like the first personal thing that I got. He also left messages on our answering machine, like it was garbled, but you could hear like I love you, and it was his voice. We would get calls from like numbers, and then you'd pick it up and nobody would be there. And this was back in '94. Let's see, I'm trying not to remember what else. Oh, like every year at Christmas, the lights would go out on the tree around like everybody's ornaments on the tree. And then like even if it was a new set of lights, they would go out. We had candles light randomly. We would have like during family dinners, the lights would flicker, like when we were sitting at the table, just to kind of be like, hey, the spirits are here. It's kind of a joke in our family. Let's see, what else? I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting that was major with that. I don't know. So he died when I was 12. And then things finally calmed down for a little bit. But then, like, since, like I said, my family didn't really believe in counseling, and I had all this trauma and all this death in the family, especially with my mom being gone and dying from alcoholism. When I hit 14, started drinking alcohol, and I was a pretty big alcoholic from 14 to 21, just because, I mean, I didn't know any better way to cope, and I was probably numbing not only the trauma, but also the fact that I could sense spirits and all of that, which I didn't even know what an empath was back then. I did, however, like, I can't remember when. So the first spiritual thing that I got into was Sylvia Browne on Montel Williams. Don't know if anybody remembers that, if anybody's old enough to remember it. I don't even remember what years she was on there, but my grandma used to watch it. So I'm grateful for that. that she was open enough to watch that instead of like, you know, she was very, very Catholic, as I said. Um, does anybody know Sylvia Brown that's in here? I know some people have said that she's fake. I've read a couple things, and like part of like towards the end of her career, they were trying to prove that she's fake, and that was kind of like a setup thing. Yes, see, I love her. So I read all of her books when I was a teenager. I think I was a teenager. No, I was in my 20s. I think actually, so I remember watching her as a teenager. But I think I read her books when I was older. I know, she has a ton. I actually have a couple here. I brought them out. I don't know if this is the first one I read. It's kind of late in here. And then I have this one too. But I have like 8 books by her. But it's so funny because I had a dream once, and it was like this building that I went into, and it had all these different levels and everything. And like I remember like in the dream that it was a building where you go to plan out your life before you incarnate. And then I don't know if it's in this book. I was reading her book after I had this dream, and she had a drawing of like what she says the other side looks like, and it was like exactly what I had seen in my dream, which was pretty fucking cool. I know she has drawings in one of these books. I don't know if it's this one or not. Oh wait, there's pictures in here. Ah, yes it is. Hall of Wisdom. There we go. That is what I dreamt in my dream, and I was like, how fucking cool is that? So I believe that she's real. I mean, psychics aren't perfect. They're human. So yeah, Sylvia Brown was the first person I started reading on my spiritual journey after always kind of knowing that spirits were about. My one aunt actually saw my mom standing in her bedroom, like, I want to say like 10 years ago. I dream in color, and I lucid dream a lot. I often dream like so vividly, and I remember everything where like I'm exhausted when I wake up sometimes. So sometimes before I go to sleep, I ask my spirit guides, I can dream, but please just let me feel like rested when I wake up. Because it's like, I know I fucking go places when I dream. We all do. Everybody do. Everybody does. Cool. Yeah. I recommend writing down your dreams because it's pretty interesting how they can, I mean, just from a therapy standpoint, our dreams show our unconscious stuff, but a lot of times, like, it's thought that we do travel to other realms when we sleep so that we can kind of like energize our spirit and everything. That's cool. Smelling things in dreams. I don't know if I've had that before. That's pretty neat. So let's see. What else was I talking about? Oh, my aunt saw my mom, like I want to say like 10 years ago now. It's really unfortunate because I do not get along with this aunt. She is crazy. She has her own shit she has not worked on. I'm very close with her daughter, who is my cousin, who's like the only family member I'm close with because my family's all crazy. I had to set boundaries with a lot of them, most of them, but I'm glad I have my cousin. That's cool. So yeah. I often tell people that I work with that a lot of times people who come from families where there's addiction, or if you struggled with addiction yourself, a lot of times you're sensitive and you don't know it. And most of the times, like from the work that I do as an art therapist and counselor, I see that people who have trauma tend to be more spiritual, and have like their intuitive and psychic abilities are like more not refined, but they have stronger intuitive and psychic abilities. Just because, I mean, from a counseling and like I don't know standpoint, I mean, with trauma, you have to be aware of your surroundings to keep yourself safe. So it's kind of like people have trauma, they, you know, they already have that skill developed. And I believe in soul contracts, where we plan our life before we incarnate on this earth because we are here to learn lessons. And like, I just believe that stuff's all connected. Cool. That's awesome. So that's why I really like working with people who have trauma, because a lot of times they are spiritual and they're looking for deeper meaning in life. And I have my own trauma, so, you know, it works. um, let's see. Trying to think of what else. So I believe we have, I know I'm forgetting a whole bunch of shit about like what formed my spirituality, but whatever. It'll come when it's needed, or if it's needed. So I mean, basically, like with that, I had to basically do stuff on my own since I was young, and that kind of helped me, I don't know, develop my own stuff. Like I said, I really didn't believe in Catholicism, which was what was tried to be beaten into me when I was younger, and yeah, I just didn't vibe with it. So I like all the metaphysical stuff. I'm pretty open with what beliefs are. If you guys, what tea am I drinking? I'm drinking chamomile, and then I have a chai mix I make, and I put all that in it, so it's delicious. I love chai, but without the caffeine, because the caffeine makes me jittery, and I'm already anxious, so don't need the caffeine. So yeah, if you guys want to say what your spiritual beliefs are, I'm cool with that too. I'm always open to hearing that stuff. So I believe that we plan our families and all that stuff, even though that's kind of hard to wrap your head around sometimes. Like, I'm like, why the hell would I choose to have this abuse and stuff like that? But the book I'm reading on soul contracts, I actually just started reading that book, and it's pretty eye-opening. It talks about how our souls choose to experience that for certain lessons and things like that. Again, which I kind of already knew, but seeing, I don't know, it's like when you read stuff, it absorbs different layers. I try to be real. I mean, there's no point in like pretending. Well, I have ADHD, so I take Adderall, so I can't, like, I really can't have caffeine or anything, because I'll just be off the wall. No, the Soul Contracts book, I can go get it. Ugh, it's the one about, like, it tries to tell you how to do all the numbers and stuff, and I tried to do it, and it didn't match up with the soul contract reading I got with the numbers and stuff, so I'm like, shit, I don't know how to do this. It's math. I'm like, ah, oh, hate math. Um, it's kind of complicated. There's another book I'm reading. I wanted to get that Carolyn Miss book, but I haven't gotten that one yet. There's another one where it talks about, I don't know who it's by, but it talks about like different like reasons why we choose certain things. Like it talks about why certain people die earlier, which is something that I'm actually just coming to terms with, is realizing that I chose and my mother chose to die early so that I could learn to basically stand up for myself. That's another thing. The natal charts, the astrology charts, it's been like a year I think since I've gotten into those, and I love doing those with clients because they're so accurate. Like it's crazy because I don't know if anybody knows anything about astrology in here, but like you need your birth time, so your exact birth time and your birth location and your birth date. And like you can go on astro.com and do it for free and just type in the information. And then I literally just Google like what stuff means from the chart. Um, but it's so cool because it's so freaking accurate for people. And it's really helpful because it can kind of give you an idea of like clarity on like what you're supposed to be doing with your life. Hey, thanks for joining. Yes, we will have to do a natal chart, Brittany. um, but so ADD, I'm like, where was I going with this? Like, I always joke 'cause my best friend has trauma, but she's not diagnosed with ADHD. So we talk about things and we go here and here and here. And then like, when we're talking with normal people, we're like, oh wait, sorry, like, can you follow us? But we can follow each other because we go everywhere. Um, so yes, natal charts can like give you an idea of like why you incarnated as well, because there are certain aspects of it that talk about past lives and like the 12th house, there's 12 houses. Yes, pretty much. Squirrel. um, the 12th house is about the unconscious stuff, but it's also about like the few hours before birth. And I think it's about past life stuff too. I don't know. I could be wrong. I know there's a north node and a south node, and the south node is about past life stuff too. Um, hey, hey, Laura, I'm talking about astrology stuff. She's like the astrology master. I'm talking about how natal charts are so helpful in therapy and counseling sessions because they give so much clarity and how they relate to soul contracts and all that stuff. If you want good astrology stuff, go visit, I can't say I have a hard time saying words, Astrologica Low. She's great. She actually did mine, I think, right? You did mine, Laura. Pretty sure. Yeah, that was forever ago. She actually did my chart and talked to me about it, and it was super helpful, and that's what got me hooked on natal charts. I don't know how we got on this topic. You did, yeah. So I believe in soul contracts and how we choose certain life experiences to go through. Our soul does because it wants to grow and learn certain things. Again, that can be a hard concept to accept sometimes because, I mean, it's not like it takes the pain away of the shit you've been through. It can just kind of help in healing some of that trauma. So, for example, like I said, like I'm just coming to realize that I decided to incarnate into the abusive and domestically violent family, and to be eventually stuck with my grandmother, who was the main abusive one, so that I could learn to stand up for myself and find my voice. That's another thing we'll talk about in a minute. But, and that that my mother chose to pass on early so that I could have those experiences. Because I honestly don't think I would be doing what I do today if I didn't have those experiences. As much as it sucked, and as much as I would love to have my mom here and things like that, shit happens for a reason, guys. What was I just gonna say I was gonna go back to? Oh, so chakra stuff. In 2012, so I grew up with my grandmother, who was emotionally and physically abusive. She was stopped being physically abusive when I got to be like a teenager, when I could fight back. But I mean, she tried to force things onto me. So she was very controlling. She wanted me to be a certain way, and if I wasn't that way, I would be called names. I'd be told I was like a piece of shit, and that like I need to love Jesus and God, and if I don't do these things, like, oh my gosh, shame and guilt. I mean, the whole surviving, what is it called? Surviving Catholic, or being a survived Catholic or something. that shit's true. So, hey, so growing up with my grandmother, who was emotionally and physically abusive, and then was controlling, like, she suppressed my voice, my ability to speak my truth, which is kind of the point of why I'm doing this live too, and why I'm going to start doing some more lives too to help other people, but also because that's been an issue for me throughout my life, is speaking my truth. So, and like not feeling comfortable enough to be myself, which a lot of people I know struggle with. So like a lot of the work I'm doing right now is trying to be my authentic self and trying to figure out who the fuck that is. Okay. Wait, huh? Blankly? Hey, whoever can join can join. I'm cool. What's up? Join the party. um, so yes, like I said, ADHD, distracted. With the finding my voice. So I've had a hard time. Hey, EJ, thanks for joining. There's been a lifelong theme of finding my voice and speaking my truth and having that be suppressed so that I can figure out how the fuck to do that. You're cool. So along with that, I believe in how we hold energy in the body and the chakras and stuff like that. So, hey, it's a party in here. Fast forward to 2012, I got sick with thyroid disease. Actually, it's technically Hashimoto's disease, which is autoimmune thyroid disease. I don't know if you guys can see, but I had to have my thyroid removed back in 2014. So I grew up with all the abuse and all the trauma and all that bullshit. So I didn't feel comfortable like speaking my truth because I mean, when I was younger, I feared for my safety because my grandmother was abusive. But I mean, then I numbed from 14 to 21 with alcohol. And then after 21, I started to get my life back on track. Oh, I know, right? When I was 21, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and then I started taking meds, and that's when I like got my life back on track because I didn't want to end up like my mom or the rest of my family and be a fucking addict, and wanted to actually do something with my life. Hey, Anne. So, I mean, once I was 21, I'm pretty sure that's when I started reading the Sylvia Browne books and started really to focus on my spirituality and stuff. But I didn't work on my trauma. I mean, I always used my art to kind of cope from when I was a kid all the way through. I did art in high school. I did my undergrad in studio art. And then, like, I didn't find out what art therapy was until literally, like, the last semester of undergrad. Some girls were talking about it in my studio art class, and I was like, what's that? And I'm like, so I looked into it, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. But anyways, I mean, like, when you go through grad school for art therapy, you have to do a lot of introspection and working on your own stuff. So I did, but not enough. Like, right now, I'm in therapy, working on that hardcore. But in 2012, I got super sick. I was super tired. 2012 was just crazy, which is funny because it was my Saturn return, which I just learned is when shit hits the fan for you, pretty much, if you go off track. So I graduated with my master's in 2012. I moved out with my husband. We were engaged at that point. I finally moved out for the first time. So I was still living at home with my grandmother, who was still kind of crazy, still trying to be controlling when I was like 28. I'm like, what are you doing? But so I moved out, and that was stressful. And then what else happened? I feel like I'm forgetting something. We got married that October. We bought a house later, but that's later in the year. I went to Ursuline College in Cleveland, well, Pepper Pike technically. That's the only art. I'm lucky. It's literally like when I lived at my grandmother's, it was like 15 minutes away from my house, and it's literally like 2 minutes down the road now from where I live. um, but I lost my train of thought because I have ADHD. So yeah, 2012. My husband and I got married. We just went to the courthouse because I'm not about that big fancy bullshit. I learned my cat got sick, I think. I can't remember if that was the year before. That was the year before. My cat was, like, getting really sick with kidney failure. My cat Buttons. I have his paws tattooed on my wrist because he was my baby. I can't turn my wrist. But he actually got sick, got a lot sick, got worse, right, like, literally the day we got married, which was October 12th, 13th, 2012, I don't know, whatever, I don't pay attention to that. So he was getting really sick. I was taking him to get fluids, like, weekly and then bi-weekly towards the end, and then my cousin, Joanne, she died of heroin overdose, and she was 36, which is the age that my mom was when she died, and I'm turning 36 in July, so there's a lot of themes here with that. And that sucked because out of my cousins, so, like, I'm the oldest out of, like, the younger kids, and then she was older, but she was the youngest of the older, and so I think she was, like, 7 years older than me, but we were pretty close, and it really sucked that she died. And she left behind a baby at that point. The baby is now 8, but, so yeah, so there was a shitload of stuff that happened in 2012, so I thought I was just grieving, but in reality, my thyroid was, like, dying. My cat died. I had to put my cat down in the beginning of 2013, I think, and then that's when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. But anyways, this all relates because I believe Hashimoto's is related to, like, the throat chakra, because, I mean, that's where your thyroid is, and your thyroid literally controls everything in your body, and if you don't have a thyroid, you can die, because it controls everything. But that pretty much started my whole holistic, like, thing, because I tried to find doctors to help me, and none of them would listen. I was told, Hashimoto's isn't really a big deal. You're too young to be sick. Trying to think of what else. I blocked out a lot of it. I would tell them I wouldn't feel good on the medication, and they would say that my labs were fine, and I'm like, well, something's wrong, because I went from, like, working out and running, like, 5 days a week to not being able to get out of bed and shower. And that's why, like, depression, when anybody comes in with depression or anxiety, I'm like, get your thyroid checked, because that definitely affects that. I was very depressed at that point because I didn't have thyroid working. And I had a lot of anxiety too. I couldn't sleep. It was like a complete 180, and then I went to all these doctors, and they're like, oh, you're fine. And I'm like, the fuck you, I'm fine. Like, I'm completely different from, like, who I used to be. So I had to do a lot of finding my voice then, too, which is funny, because it's about the throat chakra and the thyroid. So I eventually, like, found a holistic doctor. I was going to a doctor an hour away for quite a while until, like, he started to not listen to me too. But, oh, I had thyroid cancer. Duh, forgot that. So after I got diagnosed, I was put on Synthroid, which is the standard medication, and I felt worse on it. They tried Synthroid and Cytomel, and I still felt like shit. So I advocated for Armour Thyroid because I thought, like, I intuitively knew that's what my body needed. And I did a lot better on that. I can't remember. I think I started Armour after or right before I had my thyroid out. So I was on Synthroid and Citamel for like a year, and my thyroid, I still had my thyroid at this time, and it got so large, I literally had trouble breathing and swallowing, and like I would gasp for air because it grew so large so quick. And so I was getting like ultrasounds and all this stuff, and they're like, oh, you're fine. Here, some prednisone, take this. So I tried prednisone, and it literally made me psychotic, like super paranoid. Like I had to just, like, I could not do it. So I'm like, and plus I didn't want to be on a fucking steroid because that destroys your body. So I was like, no, I cannot do this. So I joined like Facebook groups and all that stuff. Like I'm so grateful for Facebook in that sense, because I don't know if what I would have done, because I found so much support on that, through there, and like different doctors that would help. So I found a doctor, like 45 minutes away, who did listen. I think she prescribed me the Armour. Like I called her crying, and they got me in within like 2 days, and she usually has like an 8-month wait list. So like they were like, okay, we got you. I'm like, thank God. Like I was like, I'm gonna start crying. Like it was such a rough time. So I'm very grateful for Spirit with that, because they sent me the people I needed. So, oh, you can watch the replay, right, Laura? So I fought to have my thyroid removed because I was like, I can't do this. I knew something was wrong. Like, I felt like I was dying because my thyroid had grown so large, and I just knew something was off. So she gave me the name of a surgeon at Cleveland Clinic. He was kind of a dick, but I'm like, whatever, just, you're gonna take it out, so I gotta play nice. And I was scared because I'd never had surgery before, so that was my first surgery, and the dick move, I was like, I don't know if I was crying or what, I can't remember, like, as they were about to put me under, or when they were putting me under, because you put the mask on, and I was like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And he's like, well, you chose to do this. That's the last thing you said before I went out. I'm like, you're a fucking asshole. But I woke up and I could breathe, and I, like, instantly felt better. And then to come find out, there were 2 types of cancer in my thyroid. So, point of this story is, you know your body, you know if something's wrong. If doctors don't listen, get a second, get a third, get a fourth opinion, because you know your body. You will find somebody to listen to you. That's why I like working with people who have chronic health issues, because I've been through a lot of shit with it. But again, going back to the whole finding my voice and speaking my truth, like that was just a whole other test because I didn't do it before. So it's like, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do earlier. So here's your Saturn return. We're gonna fuck some shit up for you now, and you have to face this. But that's when I found the doctor that was an hour away, in Canton. And he was actually awesome at first because he was super concerned. He was like, you have 2 types of thyroid cancer, and one is the slower one, which is what they tell you. Literally, I've been told this by doctors. It's the good cancer to have is thyroid cancer. Whatever. But the second, papillary, I think, was the good cancer. And then I had follicular cancer in it, which is fast growing and gets really bad really quick. They took out some lymph nodes too that were swollen. Thankfully those came back fine. There wasn't cancer in those. It was just cancer in the thyroid. And so he had me do radioactive iodine, which is just, you literally take a pill and you're radioactive for like a week or 2. I had to carry a card with me. It was pretty cool. It's like, hey, I'm radioactive. So, like, they scanned my body after that, and there wasn't any cancer anywhere else, thankfully. So that was kind of like, I fucking told you so to all these other doctors who didn't listen to me. So again, point of the story is you know your body. If something's wrong, follow your gut. So yeah, he helped me for a little bit, and then I finally saved up enough money to see a holistic doctor who I see now. She's a DO, which is a doctor of osteopathy. So she's a real doctor, but she does holistic stuff. Her name's Dr. Tenpenny. She's in Middleburg Heights in Ohio. She just doesn't accept insurance, which I get it, because insurance tries to force you to do certain stuff and won't cover holistic treatment. And watch that documentary Heal if you can on Netflix, because it's all about that. So anyways, that was my big thyroid throat chakra test, and about finding my voice and stuff like that. If you guys have any questions, you can ask too. So yeah, like I said, I believe like we hold energy in our bodies in the chakras. So I do chakra balancing or chakra clearing and rebalancing with the pendulum and crystals for a lot of people. And like especially with trauma, the lower 3 chakras are usually out of balance. So like the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, because that's where we're grounded, that's where we hold our trauma and our feelings and our sense of power. And usually when we have trauma, all of that's taken away. And again, since I noticed that people who have trauma are usually more spiritual, usually their upper chakras are like wide open, and then their lower chakras are super closed or blocked. So doing some of that chakra balancing helps with that, and then also working on your shit in therapy helps, because that helps balance out the chakras too. Do you take any thyroid medication now? I take thyroid medication. I take Armour Thyroid. I take a whole bunch of shit. I basically had to self-treat too, since it's the autoimmune form. Oh, sure. I appreciate you too, and all of you listening. I take like a crap load of supplements. I always joke with my husband that having an autoimmune disorder is not for poor people, because I spend most of my paycheck on supplements, on my thyroid medication, and whole foods and holistic food. Because if I eat like crap, I can't function. So it's just how I have to be. But I take Armour Thyroid. I take iodine. Sometimes they don't recommend iodine for thyroid disorders, but I just started that within the past year, and I feel so much better with it added in. I take, I was about to say selenite. I take selenium. I use a vitamin B patch, a vitamin B12 with a bunch of other vitamin Bs in it. Yeah, Armour's from the pig thyroid. I like it because it has, so there's, the main ones are T3 and T4, but the Armour has T1 and T2 in it. And of course, in the synthetic, they don't have that because it's not important, but obviously if our body makes it, it's important. Excuse me. So yeah. Oh, thanks. So yeah, I do that. I take fish oil for the omega-3s. I tried compared to the synthetic ones or the other natural thyroid medications. Hey, I tried WP. I can't do the synthetic thyroid medication. It doesn't work for me. Oh, sure. Thank you for listening. I can't do the synthetic. It doesn't work for me. My body's always been super sensitive to medicine, which is another empath thing, usually, at least from my experience that I've noticed with people. Yeah, and the other natural thyroid medications my body wouldn't absorb them, so Armour is what works for me best. But a big thing with that is healing your gut, so I'm doing a lot of that, healing leaky gut, which, by the way, is connected with depression and anxiety. It sucks because I'm going to go on my soapbox here now because it's like a systems issue. Like, depression and anxiety, they're finding new research, well, new research, quotes. I feel like Dr. Evil, the quotes. Random. They're finding that depression and anxiety start in the gut. It's not a brain disease, it's not a brain disorder, it starts in the gut. So there's something called leaky gut where if you eat foods that cause inflammation in your body, or I guess gluten, or like even just like all the chemicals and toxins that's in our food and air now, it depletes the stomach lining, and then as you eat, food streams out from your gut into your bloodstream, and that can cause food allergies and food intolerances, and then that causes a leaky gut, and it causes depression and anxiety, because your gut is where you make all of I think it's serotonin you make in your gut. So the stuff that I use to heal that is I take food grade diatomaceous earth every day. Strong probiotics. I got a food intolerance test done, which helps me eliminate foods that cause inflammation for me to kind of calm my system down. But it's not covered by insurance, and all this other stuff, I mean, it costs money. Can you? Where is he? Yeah, he's sleeping. You're fine. But it's frustrating because, like I said, most of my paycheck goes to the natural holistic healing, and most people can't afford that, and I get that. So usually I just say, like, get on a probiotic because that will help better than nothing. I don't remember how I got on this topic. So, did he? So yes, I like to incorporate energy work with some of the art therapy stuff, and the counseling stuff. Did you guys all see the selenite sword that I got from Organic Punk Rocks? She's amazing. If you do not go follow her, go follow her. She has amazing crystals for amazing prices. The selenite sword for cutting cords. It's like, yeah, this is a badass piece of stone. So yes. So yeah, I worked in community mental health for a little over 5 years once I got out of school. And I was working with kids and teens who were at risk for out-of-home placement or who were already out-of-home placement. So we were the step right before hospitalization, so like at outpatients. So it was a very stressful job. I often worked with kids who didn't want to be there. I mean, for the most part, they liked me because I had pink hair and, like, I don't give a fuck if you swear, like, but, it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I want to be doing something more spiritual focused, and yeah, a lot of these kids have trauma, but they're not in that place. So I eventually was able to get out into private practice, working under a group, and now I'm slowly moving and starting my own. Well, I have started my own out of my home. So if you know anybody in the Lyndhurst, East Cleveland area, send them my way. I can accept insurance for the most part. But yeah, I like to do a lot of, like, empath training and, like, education on what an empath is, what psychic skills are, because everybody's psychic. It's just a matter of developing them. And like I said, most of the clients I work with have trauma, so they're already psychic, and most of them just don't know it and just need to work on it. I like to do the chakra stuff and, like, teach about that, and then also do some art stuff with that too. Yeah, props to you. I never worked inpatient, and I don't think I could. um, it's funny because I got super sick when I was working in community mental health, and I know that the stress of that added to that as well. Like aside from the throat chakra stuff, because I also worked with a boss who was just made me do everything. I agree. It is a blessing and a curse. So like I teach people how to ground a lot. I mean, I still struggle with it too, especially in the wintertime, because I need to be by water. Um, what else? I like to use oracle cards in my sessions with people because, and I especially like, hey, thanks for joining. I like to have people pull their own cards to show them that they can pull for themselves because you can. Like, you don't need a reader to pull your cards for you. I mean, it's nice to get readings every now and then because I know there's shit that I can't see that, like, I block myself. So, yeah, it's nice to get a reading from somebody else every now and then just to kind of, like, clarify and, you know, tell you what you already know. You just don't, like, have it in your conscious brain. But yeah, like, it's pretty cool. Especially, like, yesterday, when you do a past life regression with somebody and they pull cards that show exactly what they just experienced. That was pretty fucking amazing. And to show that, like, with that, you have to be open to that, because I did a regression later with somebody and they were very doubtful and theirs was not very accurate. So, it's, you guys all, you all are powerful and you have all the power you need. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I was going to talk about. Do you guys have any questions? I think I talked about everything. It's been a while. I'm sure there's stuff I forgot, but whatever. I'm currently working on a inner child healing deck. I'm hoping I'll have that done by the end of the year. It's like the affirmation deck I have out now, which is Empowered Visions. I have another Instagram just for that, but I will. I'll bring Cobalt in a minute. He's probably sleeping up there. He never sleeps on the bed. It's so funny. If I'm on the floor, he's on the bed, and vice versa. It's okay. This has nothing to do with what you talked about, but what is the best way to be there for someone with depression and anxiety? That's a good question. Just like validating their feelings, knowing your boundaries and your limits, because I know that can be exhausting for some people. So you can only give to others as much as you give to yourself. So make sure you take care of yourself in order to give to other people. It's that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. Thanks, Nina. Asking them just asking them like what you can do for them to help them. Because sometimes it's different for everybody, you know. That's the only thing I can think of right now. Oh, we have 26 seconds remaining, so I'm just going to start a new one just to talk about the decks and stuff like that. So join me once I restart this live. All right, thanks.